Hey guys, I thought that today I would go over the evolution of this Yakut concept. And this is the very first one that I made for myself. And I've been using it for several years now. The handle is round, you can see it still has the ring. And I got a little couple strings there. This is actually two pieces of wood. This is laminated oak from an oak barrel that the Helsinki Distilling Company donated to me. And you can see it's very small. It's really quite nice for like home cooking and stuff like that. Recently, I've also been using it in hunting trips and all over the place. And the main reason I made this is because I discovered this truly quite unique way of forging steel by hand, and that's this very popular cold forging technique that the Japanese use on their kitchen knives and a lot of their other knives. Generally, they cold forge laminated steels, or they're cold forging actually 5160 as well. It's quite, people don't realize that actually in Japan, there's a little bit of gunk there. Then in Japan, a lot of kitchen knives are actually made from spring steel. All over Asia, spring steel is used to make kitchen knives. 5160 is one of the most popular knife steels in the world, actually. If you think about the whole of Asia as a whole, you know, the Philippines and so forth, Nepal, all the kukris are made from spring steel and stuff like that. But this one was actually made from K990 steel, which is a higher carbon content steel, and it can be cold forged. Now, I made these because I've always appreciated single beveled knives. I'm not, you know, when I'm cutting food, I like very sharp, very smooth cuts, and there's something about using single beveled knives that just feels right to me. This is also a very light knife. And yeah, this has pretty much exclusively been one of my go-to kitchen knives all the time. And you know, once you get kind of addicted to single beveled knives, those regular chef's knife profile, they're nice, but they just don't cut the same, you know, as single beveled knives. And so I actually touched it up today on the stones. And so this was the very first one. You can see it says number 68 there, but that was another series I made a long time ago. That was just when I started doing serial numbers, and that was for like unique kitchen knives, basically. So, and you know, it's very light, it's very dandy, it's a nice little petty knife, you could say. And now recently, as time has gone on, I've made a lot of these. I've used this type of cold forging on many other designs because it works so well with certain steels. And what it allows you to do is, after the hot forging, you anneal the blade, and it allows you to do a hell of a lot of forging without any heat. You can just smack that steel down, and you gotta make sure you anneal it properly, otherwise it doesn't work. And with that cold forging, you can straighten your blades, you can put stamps on your blades, you can do all these very interesting shapes. Now, yanagibas in Japan, they're cold forged to shape like this before they go on the grinding stones. So they do actually cold forge just like this before they go on the sharpening stones to make everything smooth. Again, this is not a yanagiba, so I don't intend on doing any grinding or polishing on this inside section. I kind of like it the way it is because this Kurouchi is it's rust resistant in many ways. And so this blade here made me feel like this is something I should really continue and do more of. And I made a few more of these Yaecut style kitchen knives, and I've always been pleased with them. Yeah, they're unique. They might not be appealing to everybody, but it's definitely something new. And it's, you know, I think personally it's very important for, you know, makers to constantly try and introduce something new into the knife making world, whether or not it's well received, just so that there's more ideas going around, and those ideas can develop into something new. And as time goes on, of course, I've been cutting much larger pieces of meat. And then something I noticed about this particular knife, and that was the case with most of my kitchen knives, that they were actually all quite small knives. And you know, when it comes to actually like cooking, especially slicing meat, large pieces of meat and stuff like that, you do need a larger knife. And also, people like taller knives as well. There is sort of an affinity in the markets now for taller knives because it's very difficult to find really tall blades in some ways. So, one thing led to another, and this is, I think I made this one 4 years ago or 5 years ago, so it's been a long time. And you can see I've sharpened it a lot, I've polished it a lot, and I've been very pleased with this one. And just a couple weeks ago, I decided, whatever, I'm going to pick it up again and I'm going to make this cleaver. And I'm using pretty much the exact same everything, just more steel. And another thing that I've been picking up on now is doing these octagonal handles with the ring attachment at the front. So the ring goes over the wood. The nice thing with the ring like that is that it acts very much like an integral bolster. So it's a very comfortable place to put the front of your hand at. And it's much lighter than an integral bolster, and it's also well, it's metal, so it's much one of the key things that it does is it reduces all the swelling of the wood, right? That sun is really bright. And so I made this one, and I was using it, playing around. It's perfect for me. It might not be appealing to everybody again. And I realized there's something to this, and I really, really, really like this knife. It fits really nicely in the hand, and the extra width there really allows you to do all your sort of neat maneuvering and the cutting of your foods and stuff like that. So really pleased with how this came out, and I realized, like, yeah, it's tall, but it wasn't actually as long as I wanted it for myself. It's not much longer than this one, so the height was good. I like the height very much, and but this is actually quite a huge step. Maybe you can see sort of, this does look a bit more rustic, and it does look a little bit more like, how do you say, I guess you could say handmade. This looks a bit more like production based, which is the intent purpose. And we got some really nice curly birch here, you can see. So this one, opened the floodgates once again into, focusing on much larger knives. And another thing I felt like was that the ring was maybe a little short aesthetically. So one thing leads to another, and you guys have seen this now a lot in the last few videos, and we came to this one, which is basically the maximum size, like that's reasonable for a chef's knife. And you can see I made a much longer ring bolster there. This is a surprisingly light, I don't have my scales here, but it's a surprisingly light knife, and in the pinch grip, it's right there, the balance somewhere. Hold on, let's see. So for a big old blade like this, that's not a bad place to have your balance point. Whoops. Somewhere there. So in a pinch grip, it fits, the balance is really on point. It's also very, very thin. So that's one of the benefits of, that's one of the benefits of this cold forging, is you can work that metal like a lot and get it very, very, very thin, you see. And that's like quite important, of course. But one of the key things with the cold forging is that it allows me to do more work under the hammer and less work under the machines. And that's, a key aspect of this sort of production scale Yaecut. And this is, to me, the perfect size, the perfect length, the perfect height for all the things that I need to use it for in the kitchen, with all the meat that I've been cutting. There's very large pieces of meat, and it's nice to be able to get a thin slice out of that meat, in one go, without having to play around too much and stuff like that. So in one of the later videos, once I get this GoPro to work a little better, I think I'll do like a how to make beef jerky video. I'll do some basic thing like that, and then just show the cutting of the meat with this one. And yeah, there's really not that much change. I mean, there's like 30 knives somewhere. It's like 25 knives between these two. There isn't that much change between the two, but the quality has increased a lot. And I don't use this laminated oak so much anymore, because the glues just don't seem to stick very well with glues. That's why you see this dowel construction at the back, and that's just to keep those laminations together. Now it's just one block of stabilized curly birch, and it's just much tougher that way. And this has been a joy. I really really like this. Although, on Facebook I posted it, and there was a little bit of criticism. Some guy was like, "That's not a this," and "This is too big," and all these kind of things. It's like, I'm sorry, but you're not you haven't tested the knife. You're not trying to invent something new, and so of course, something like this is going to receive certain criticisms, and whatever. I mean, I'm gonna keep making these, and people can test them, and I think it's just I like to test things. I like to push the boundaries, and especially with the cold forging. And another thing too is that, like, yeah, I could go and make a Giotto. Yeah, I could go and make Yanagibas, but I'm not going to be doing anything new, and I'm not going to be challenging sort of myself really, in the sense that there's, if you want a Giotto, you can get a Giotto pretty easily and very high quality for very affordable prices nowadays. So I really want to stretch my wings and do something that's new, and it's very difficult to make this without the cold forging. You're not going to be able to really do this without the cold forging. It's very important. And that cold forging stems back all the way to the medieval ages, when they were making plate armor. There's even a name for it. I don't remember exactly what it is, but so these rings, these are not stainless rings. The stainless rings are for the stainless steel kitchen knives, but for the carbon steel blades, this is actually just iron from the scrapyard. It's a tube that I machine on the lathe, and then I squish it into an oval. I fit it over the wood, so I machine down the front of the wood here and file it down, and then I fit it over, and then I do the octagonal grinding on the belt grinder with a lot of water cooling. You kind of have to use the water cooling to do this kind of handle, because the metal gets so hot otherwise. So the water cooling keeps everything cold. And when metal gets hot, it expands. So you're going to get very funky things going on with the metal. But we've reached this point now, and what I've learned, and this is actually kind of healthy through some of the criticisms, is that yes, this is a bit wide, this circumference. It means you got a lot of metal to work around when you're sharpening and stuff like that. But the best solution, the easiest solution, is, of course, once I'm very close to the final product, I just grind around the perimeter and take away as much metal from the edge as possible, and bring it down to almost invisible metallic, this perimeter, and that will help tremendously. Trust me, that will help a lot with the sharpening. So I'm gonna reduce the price on this one on my website because of that, and then this one I'm going to keep for myself, because I want to see actually just how difficult it really is. Because the width of this this here is not much. It's pretty much the same as like your basic Mora knife that you get for €2 at the store. Like it's not that much metal to work off, and I got a lot of good sharpening stones. So, but this is the evolution and how far we've come just in 5 years. And again, I could have, like I've said in the previous video, I could have made hundreds of these in that time, and they would have all been, pretty much like this. But then waiting a month, 6 months, or so before making 5 more or making a few more has allowed me to think in between those stages, in between those batches, and improve the product much more and make it much more refined. And so I'm not wasting all those materials. I'm actually saving it for the right time and place. I can also very easily polish all this gunk, the Kurouchi, out and make it, shiny metallic finish. I mean, I've done that on some of them, and it's nice. But I just like to keep things simple, and I think in many ways this is an expression of skill. When you see this type of forging, this is not an easy thing to forge. This is a very, very skilled type of forging. So in many ways, this is an expression of skill. And I like that. I like to be able to show something unique, something that's difficult, something that people are like, hey, how would you even forge that? How do you even get it down to this thickness and this flat and this straight? And meanwhile having a hollowed out section like this. And I'm not actually doing anything that they don't do in Japan here, like literally. So, this is where we are, and it's a very interesting evolution. There's been paring knives. like this that I've made. There's been all sorts of different types of single bevel. There was a really, really nice Yanagiba that I made like that with the Yakut style, which was like an art project. It was like a blacksmith's knife with the metal handle. It was really, really beautiful. And you know, people, a blacksmith, bladesmith would look at that and it's like, how would you do that even? And it's actually very simple once you've nailed down this cold forging and the annealing of the steel. And that's the important key factor here. And again, I'm going to stick to this handle construction for pretty much all my kitchen knives. This is just the way it's going to be, because I like octagonal handles and I like the metal at the front. It's again, it really, I think it's an expression of skill and not that many people doing it. In fact, I don't think anybody's really doing it. I'm sure a lot of people are. If you look at the Nesmuk knives, they've been doing it for a while. They've been putting metal at the front. But the next few knives I have lined up, they're not going to be Yakuts. I might make another one like this with those improvements, but I have Damascus billets, wrought iron, 52-100, these like super high-end chef's knives. So I would like to actually get a few of those super high-end chef's knives done, with really nice Damascus pattern and 52-100 steel core and wrought iron laminations and so forth. I'm looking forward to doing that, just because I haven't done it for a while, and I kind of have to as a maker. I can't just stick to production blades, but I think that's the end of the video. And guys, you can head over to my website hotmetalknives.com and get yourself a scalpel. This one's got a little rust on it. This is my most sold product. It's it receives 5-star reviews all day, every day. And then also, I've put up there these two little type of strops that you can have now. These mini strops are great with your scalpel. It's a nice little addition because it allows you to kind of just hone up that edge if you're out in the woods carving or whatever, and you want to, just to quickly hone that edge down. The big one, the long one, this is more than long enough to actually even get your, even your kitchen knife. If you bring this into the woods, you see, there's a little bit of, so the long one is very multi-purpose.